What is your guess I can't go into that store ever again story? I was in a souvenir shop in London, England, with all these knickknacks and whatnot. I bumped a shelf that had a bunch of models of Big Ben, and like 6 or 7 of them fell off the shelf and broke. I offered to pay for them, but the employees blew it off. I guess minimum wage workers don't care enough about their actual company policy. Thankfully, I was grateful, and now I will never return to that particular store. I got a gym membership for the first time recently. A lot of the machines are pretty self-explanatory, but I've never used a lot of them, so I have no idea what I'm doing. So a few weeks ago I'm trying out the endless stare machine, and in front of me is a guy on a machine working his arms, like making circular pedaling motions. I thought, I could do my arms too. So I take the machine next to his, set the timer for 10 minutes. Just circling away. I finish my 10 minutes and look down by the seat to see handles. It was a leg machine. I sat there for 10 minutes in front of the entire gym. God and everybody circling my arms like a lunatic. I mean, I'm still going back because I paid for it, but I'm not going to look anyone in the eye there ever again. Do barbershops count? Decided to get a haircut whilst having a cold. Sneezed and farted at the same time. Never went back. Oh God, I finally have a reason to share this story. One of the first jobs I had, I approached my boss in his office to discuss a report. As I was standing near him, he was sitting in his chair reading the file on his desk. I felt a sneeze come on. Knowing that I didn't have time to grab a tissue, I just turned away from him. However, the sneeze held off, but the gas in my stomach did not. I crop dusted the poor man. Embarrassed, I whipped my body back around to face him, and the centripetal force of my motion must have knocked my sinuses loose. I sneezed upon completing the spin, but was in too much shock to cover my face. I gave my boss both an aura of noxious odor and mucus spewed across his face. I sat on a Target shelf and the entire row of shelves crashed down onto the ground. Back when I was getting married, I was sick as a dog, and my soon-to-be bride insisted we go shopping for the wedding invites. Went into this pretty higher-end shop and really felt ill, and not just at the prices. Asked one of the workers if they had a restroom I could use. Long story short, took a massive smelly diarrhea dump. Clogged the toilet and they had no plunger to fix it with. Even though I only flushed once, the toilet kept running and it started to overflow. Rushed out, closed the door, grabbed my bride by the arm and just said, "We gotta go." While at the till at the convenience store paying for my lunch, the girl behind the counter asked if I wanted to go for a drink. Being married, I made my apologies, hastily pointing to the ring on my fingers, to which she replied that my lunch was a meal deal and would be cheaper with the drink. When I was a kid, my family went to a pizzeria Uno, and before the food came I went to inspect the plumbing. They had those sinks where you press down on the knob and the water would flow, with the knob slowly raising back up before it would turn off after 20 seconds. I used my fist and hit the top of the knob, and the thing just popped off and a huge geyser of water was erupting non-stop. Me and another kid were in there. We looked at each other and just bolted from the bathroom. I got back to my seat and just sat there silent. Then my mom went to use the bathroom, and when she came back she told us this story of how there was a pool in the bathroom hallway and the manager and an employee were in the men's room slipping and sliding trying to shut off the water. My whole family was laughing at the story, but I just sat there silent. They asked me what's wrong and I told them it was me that did it. They never fail to mention it every time we drive past a pizzeria Uno. Even now 20 years later, I've never stepped foot in one since then. Dramatic silence. Can't you see, mother? It was me. I did it. It was my fault. How do you expect me to live with that? I was with a group of friends in a very quiet store. We were slowly leaving one by one through the double glass doors. One of it was closed and the other stayed opened. I somehow thought the closed door was opened and vice versa. So I walked smack into the middle of the closed glass door. My face was imprinted on it. I guess my face was very oily. My friends and the shopkeeper came rushing to see if I was okay. Then all marveled at my squashed face imprint. I left quickly. Every time I walk past that shop I make sure I am looking down or at the other side in case the staff recognize my face. Went to a pizza place to pick up an order, was handed the food and said, Thank you, sir. The response was, my name's Tiffany. Had to send my wife in to get the food until Tiffany didn't work there anymore. My girlfriend fist bumped the clerk when he was actually reaching to grab a paper we had just signed. Anyway, we don't go to that tire kingdom anymore. Went on a first date with this girl to a new restaurant in town. She proceeded to get sloppy drunk and made a huge scene. From the classic could not control the volume of her voice to insisting on trying to show me and some other gentleman nearby what kind of underwear she had on, while loudly insisting that she's a good girl though. The server we had seemed to get that I was not a willing part of this, but I was so mortified there's no way I'd ever go back. I used to go to the same haircut place since I was in kindergarten until I was in my teens. One day I go for a haircut and get this new, fairly attractive woman. As she's starting, I start to sweat. Now sometimes when I was younger my head would get really hot and my head would sweat when I was in put on the spot. Sometimes anxiety, I guess. No idea, but it's mostly gone away thankfully. Usually a few drops of sweat will roll down my face when this happens. But not today. It was like someone was standing over me, slowly pouring a bottle of water slowly over my head. It just kept going and going. Eventually the girl mentions, "Wow, you must be really hot." I'm already very nervous, and blurt out the first thing that pops into my head. "Yeah, it must be because you're pretty." I'm not sure why this is happening. You're pretty, but it's not like you're that pretty. So pretty much as soon as the last words are leaving my mouth I start asking myself, why in God's name would you say that? Now I'm even more embarrassed and I have to sit through a haircut feeling like an idiot. A drippy wet idiot. Actual surveillance footage of me as the haircut was finishing. I spent the rest of the haircut praying for it to be done quickly or for a meteor to come through the ceiling and put me out of my misery. The girl handled the rest of the haircut like a goddamn pro. No idea why she didn't just kick me out. She finished. I paid. Gave her a huge tip. And now I drive farther to get my haircut done somewhere else. Yeah, it must be because you're pretty. Okay, not all that smooth, but she might be flattered and give you a smile. Not too bad. I'm not sure why this is happening. Alright. Starting to ramble here, but she might write it up to you being nervous or something. Still okay. You're pretty, but it's not like you're that pretty. Good God, man. What the hell? Not a store, but a public library. We're at the counter, and the librarian is scanning the books we've selected. She was generously sized. My little brother, 4 or 5 at the time, tugs my mom down to whisper something in her ear. He was rather new to the concept of whispering. He put his hand up to shield his lips from the librarian. Despite all this, he says about the librarian at standard speaking volume, "Hey mom, you ever notice how fat that lady is?" Mom tried to play it off by saying something akin to, "He thinks it's okay to say it to others cause he says it to me, but my mom's not fat." It did not work. We used to go there every day when my mom didn't want to have to hire a babysitter to watch us during the summer. She'd bring us to her office, and let us walk across the street to the public library to play games on their Windows Vista PCs, or just read books. She'd always come to pick us up when she was done with work. She started looking for babysitters soon after. I'm at a coffee shop. Have a glass of coffee in front of me, filled to the top. That shit is almost overflowing. I raise my hand to get the waitress' attention because I want to order something else. I accidentally whack the shit out of the glass. This sends it flying across the room where it hits the waitress on the thigh and gets coffee everywhere. Felt bad, so I left and never went back. I used to go to a bagel store near my work pretty often, maybe once a week or so. Family-owned shop, with the dad, uncle, mom etc. all working there, as well as the owner's daughter during the summer. I was always pretty friendly to everyone, and talked to the whole family as we were both from NY but lived in the South now. Well, one time after getting a sandwich to go and getting back to the office, I saw the daughter, who was maybe only a few years younger than me, had written her number on the to-go container, which was great except I was happily engaged at the time. So later that week I went back, got lunch, and let her know I was flattered but I was in a relationship. and she was very polite and we just kind of moved on. The next week, I went back in again. The daughter wasn't working, but when I went to order, the whole family started grilling me on why I wouldn't date their daughter, accusing me of making up my fiancé, saying I led her on and broke her heart again. We had never had any conversations more intimate than how's school. Oh wow, the weather is hot today. Yeah, I miss NY sometimes too, ha ha ha. Then they asked how I was going to make it up to her, at which point I kind of slowly started leaving and told them I wasn't sure, but I will think of something, and have never returned since. I pissed all over the floor of a toy store when I was a toddler. My poor dad was mortified, but the staff were very nice about it. The store's closed now, which really sucks. I don't think I actually remember the name of the place.